From a cloud perspective, we hear a lot of people here at DevOps Summit talk about, oh yeah, we cut out the infrastructure guys, right? We just get the whole budget with all the infrastructure, and we'll operate it ourselves as a business unit. We can't rely on those cloud guys and on those infrastructure guys. How did you get out of that conundrum?
It's a good question. The trouble is that even if you take it over and run it yourself, chances are in a large enterprise, you've got various compliance policies, various sourcing policies, various external regulators you have to, comply with and keep happy. If you're going to do that, you've just taken on all that work. So a lot of our effort as an infrastructure team, I talk about it. It's adding all of that safety factor to using cloud. For example, if someone wants to go off and use software as a service, we consider that cloud as well, because we need to know what type of the bank's data is being stored there. Is it backed up? What jurisdictions it's stored in? All of the sort of things, as if you were managing that yourself, you now have to have a contract in place that manages that with the third party.
Yeah.
And so for really every flavor of cloud, that's what you should be getting from your central infrastructure team, is a curated set of services which are now safe to use, and you can focus on above the line value added software features, and know that this sort of important but not value defining things like compliance and safety and backups are done, etc., are getting taken care of. That's to me the way I see how a central infrastructure team can add value.
And that curated way of offering services, that has been tried so many times, right? 2011, VMware buys Dynamic Ops. RightScale, right? So many other multi-cloud vendors, and Stradius, Service Mesh. I forget most of the names. They're gone right now, right? We just had the acquisition of RightScale through Flexera, but they just did not catch on. How do you think? How did it catch on with you? And what did you buy? Right, you're using Terraform, but you must be using something commercial on top of that to manage all of this.
Well, the way you think about multi-cloud is important, I think. So I worked at Amazon before kind of entering the banking industry, and on the other side of the table, I saw a lot of customers tell us, we'll build a cloud abstraction layer. We're just going to build our own set of APIs. We're going to curate everything. The trouble is what you quickly go to is the lowest common denominator. Your cloud APIs are only as good as your developers building and running it. And by definition, you're only going to get the common features of each cloud. So if you look today, one cloud might be ahead in machine learning and AI. Another cloud might be able to give you geographic locations and scale that a different one can't.
Right.
Another cloud might have database services that are really interesting, but only they have. Other ones might have kind of hybrid offerings that other cloud guys don't. Right. So to me, multi-cloud means go pick the best services that really will make your business accelerate from the provider that can do it. The way I look at this is we haven't, in the past, take Oracle and SQL Server as an example. We didn't sit and say, to avoid lock-in, we're actually going to write this application to be active across two different database vendors. So why would you make your cloud active across two different clouds? That doesn't make any sense to me. But if you said, hey, we're going to use this cloud for AI, and then we're going to use that cloud for an office automation suite, that to me makes more sense. Go pick kind of the best of breed in each cloud.
But then you need to speak all the different languages, right? You need to speak CloudFormation, you need to speak Azure Resource Manager, you need to speak all of the languages of the internet, of the individual tools, or you need to do Terraform for unified management. Is that what you guys are doing?
It's a good point. I would argue that all you really need to speak is a REST API. Go look at the REST API. If your cloud provider has a REST API, your developers who are coding against it should know how to work with REST APIs. And increasingly, your infrastructure people need to be developers who know how to work with APIs.
That is the problem. I mean, CloudFormation is not trivial. It's trivial in that the syntax may not be hard, but there are so many configuration items that you can do and that have repercussions somewhere else and security implications. And how do you keep that compliant?
Well, in that particular one, we use Terraform rather than using CloudFormation because we can use Terraform across really any of the big public clouds. We can also use it against Kubernetes OpenShift internally. And we're using Stratascale internally as well, which has a Terraform provider. So we can use Terraform as a kind of code it once, very little modification. It's really just config level changes, and then you can provision an environment on any of the cloud environments we're using, both in our own data center and external.
Mm-hmm. And that is interesting because there's a lot of misunderstandings of what infrastructure as a code means. A lot of people believe you write one piece of universal code, right, that deploys on Azure, on EC2, on all of those clouds, but in reality, all that you're saving when you have Terraform is you have one single place to manage compliance, right, and security, and you can store the variables in a central place if you want, and the parameters and all of those things. But you're not actually saving yourself knowing what those things are. You may get Terraform templates, but you still have to know the difference between Azure and EC2. Is that a pain point, or?
If it was easy, everyone would either have already done it, or
right.
It wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'd have to pay for the privilege if it were fun. Sometimes,
Right.
There's no getting around the hard work of transforming to use API-driven infrastructure.
Right.
And at what level do you want to understand it? So I think if you start to look at cloud providers just as APIs that you can call, and they can provision you some resource, be it compute, be it some higher level construct like a container cluster or a Kafka stream, but you're provisioning all that through the API. That's the important part to me, is that if you can drive things with API, then you can automate it.
Right. And
and if there's a good tool like Terraform, I'm sure there are other ones too, but we use some Ansible as well to kind of do the config management piece of it. And so between Terraform and then doing any configuration management on top with Ansible, we're in a good place with that.
Thank you very much.